Why do you think marriage has reduced in the Western world? Why do you think less people are getting married than before?
Conditioning. It's all about social conditioning, and it's about the feminist messaging. Going back to our conversation about the matriarchy, they've totally conditioned women to believe that marriage is a trap, that you are going to be unhappy, that you are going to be sacrificing your freedom, when in reality, I got more freedom than I ever had when I became married, because I finally became a secure woman. I knew what my purpose in life was when I had children. Everything else is so stupid and meaningless. How could you think you were going to find your purpose at the bottom of a Red Bull vodka at One Oak, Candace? You know what I mean? How could you think that? Well, because that's what Hollywood told me. That's what I saw on MTV. And I thought that was all aspirational. I look at those women, I think they're miserable. I look at these women that are still finding their freedom. I say, find the number one feminist that you know and ask yourself a question. Do you think she's happy?
Completely.
Chasing her career. Do you think Chelsea Handler's happy?
Never.
Right? And the answer is no. And so I'm lucky that I got that wake up call. I'm blessed that I got married. I'm blessed that I have, 3 children now with this one on the way. And the more that I can talk about how happy and fulfilled I am for the first time in my life, right? Not when I was drinking and pretending to be happy, but for the first time I actually am happy. And I got those things by finally realizing that the message that those things were going to constrain me was utterly false and was meant to put me down a path of misery.
Why do you think men are not getting married? That's women. Do you think men have something to do with it as well?
Same thing. I think, well, first and foremost, and I speak out on this, women are not desirable right now. Everyone's a Kim Kardashian clone. I asked you earlier, what don't men want? And you said promiscuity. Well, that seems about the only thing that's being offered right now. When I open my Instagram and I've got butt cheeks and I'm going, people are like, I don't understand why no one wants to marry. This woman's been married 4 times. I'm like, well, I can understand it, because even if men think they want it in the short term, when you see a girl, she's half naked, she looks good. Yeah, sure. You probably do want to have sex with her. I bet you're wired that way. You're hardwired that way. But then what happens after you have sex with her and you realize that so did 20 other dudes
100%.
In the same week, you don't want her.
You nailed it. You absolutely not only nailed it. And this is where we're in such a it's a race to the bottom between the two genders, right? Yeah. As the women act worse, the men act worse by extension. Yeah. Because if you're going to be moral in an immoral world, you're going to end up wrecked.
Right.
So it's getting harder and harder. So we have to kind of fix one of the genders first.
Women aren't desirable right now, as in the Western hemisphere as a whole. And of course,
finding a wife is hard.
Finding a wife is hard. And it's because women are literally being conditioned to behave like sluts.
Completely. And they're also being conditioned to leave the man as soon as things get difficult. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of programming in this I don't think even many people pick up on, but women are conditioned to act a certain way before marriage, but also during marriage, men and women are conditioned differently. If you have a man who's been married for 10 or 15 years, and let's say he doesn't sleep with his woman anymore, and he goes on TV and says, me and my woman have been married for 15 years. We no longer have sex. I'm not satisfied. I should leave. Everyone will say to him, no, you can't leave. You can't leave her just because she won't have sex with you. Are you out of your mind? Are you crazy? Stick by your woman. She has an emotional problem, etc. If you had a woman who said, I've been married for 15 years, I've been with him, I'm not attracted anymore, I don't have sex with him anymore, you deserve freedom, you can go get someone else, why are you putting up with this? His feelings aren't your responsibility. So it's actually very interesting also, the psyop happens post-marriage. Women are also attacked post-marriage to not try, not stick around, not worry about their husband's needs.
Speaking to your point, one thing I speak to the young women that follow me about is making an effort after you get married. This idea, I was reading this ridiculous column, Ask Jane, where a guy was writing in earnest saying, I love my wife. She's a wonderful mother to our children. We've been married. She had 1 child. 2 years later, she gained 50 pounds and hasn't lost it. Yeah. And Jane wrote back to him and yelled at him for saying, he's like, I'm not attracted to her anymore. I don't want to. Just yelled at him for even saying this. And I'm going, no, why are you yelling at him for being honest? The idea that marriage is a finish line is problematic. Yep. That, I got the guy, I pretended that I like to work out and go to the gym. And now that I've got him, I'm going to gain 200 pounds and he's just stuck with me. Yep. That is a poisonous mentality. You should make an effort for your husband. That's part of marriage, is caring about each other, caring about each other's health. Health is wealth. So that is toxicity, to say to a woman, to say to a man, you just have to like her anyways if she's 300 pounds and doesn't care anymore and sits on the couch all day. That's not what marriage is really about.
Completely agree. And I think everything in life is rented. I don't think anything is ever owned. I think that your health is rented and you have to pay the rent every day. And your marriage is rented and you have to work on your marriage every day. And your business is rented and everything you have is rented. I think the idea that even owning anything or anything as a finish line is wrong. Right. You don't just start a company and go, okay, I'm rich now. No, you got to work on that company every day. It's rented. You don't just get in shape and go, I'm in shape now, it's done. No, absolutely everything's the same, and a relationship is exactly the same, and I completely agree with you. I think that the breakdown of the nuclear family and the breakdown of marriage in the West is actually one of the ills and one of the big problems with it. I am not married myself, so I'm not being completely, I don't want to come across as hypocritical, but I do think that is actually a fast way to a degree to solve a lot of problems in society. I do think, though, in the current setup of society, I think the reason a lot of men are also rejecting marriage is, one, because there's not many wives to find, but two, I think a lot of men find themselves very unhappy in marriage because the women have no interest at all in satisfying them, like you said, or no interest at all in their needs. And they end up scared of divorcing her because they're going to be bankrupt in a marriage where they don't feel respected. Kids don't listen to them, and they're not the king of their own household. So what would be the attraction in getting married unless you're going to be the king of your own household? And that can be extrapolated and discussed in two different ways. One about feminine submissiveness, but also about masculine accountability and excellence. Because I think if you're truly an excellent man, you can be the king of any household. So It's very interesting. It's kind of interesting how all arguments come back to almost the same base biological things. And you teach women to be good women, you teach men to be good men, and everything kind of works out after that. And if you break those two things, everything built on top of it completely degrades and breaks down. Because even all the other things we discussed how masculinity would have prevented a lot of the COVID crisis. We can talk about how genuine masculinity or a good nuclear family and anti-propagandist dinner table can prevent a lot of this transgender insanity. There's so many things can be fixed with a man being a man and a woman being a woman. It's like the ultimate pure.
Is what I always say. And it's so natural defining the roles in the household. So like me, my husband had to sit down, and it just was, I had a natural proclivity to do certain things. Yeah. I always give the greatest example. When a baby is born, the men don't know what to do for the first, you just need your girls. You know, they just are, what do I do? And I remember thinking about every diaper size, transitioning, what clothes he needed, what onesies, all of the stuff. George, not there. I think Georgie must have been, that's my son's name, Georgie, must have been 2 months old. And I said something to, I don't even know what I said to George, but I had realized that George had already opened his college account, things that when I tell you, my brain I was just like, where are you? Yep. I'm sitting here thinking about the day to day. He's thinking about his future.
100%.
I don't even know when I would have. I think still to this day, George is now 2.5. I still would not have opened an account for him. It just is not where my brain was.
100%.
And so I love telling that story because it just speaks to how different. I'm like, did you try to feed him? He's like, I don't know why he's crying. I'm like, have you tried giving him food? And then he's like, oh, I've already sorted out his bank account. So when he turns 18, I'm like, where are you? Yeah. Men and women are different. And it's beautiful. Those differences are beautiful. Completely. The sex differences are a beautiful thing. Our instincts are beautiful. Yep. And we need to stop shunning them in this society. I love being a woman. I love that my husband's a man. We shouldn't be making someone feel badly about being a woman. We shouldn't make someone feel badly about being a man.
Well, absolutely. And if I had to be pessimistic about why they're doing it, pessimistic and also very realistic, they want to cause absolute chaos and confusion, because during chaos and confusion, you can implement anything.
Of course, slavery.
It's slavery, right? People will give up their freedom for only one thing, and that's safety. Mm-hmm. So they have to inject chaos and they have to inject confusion, and they want us confused at every level. At every base level, they want you confused. They want you confused about why your kid doesn't listen to you, why your marriage doesn't work, why you're broke, why they want you confused from the ground all the way up. So you're just confused. So when they come along with some sort of solution, no matter what garbage it is, you end up just adopting it because you're sick and you need a medicine. So absolutely, they attack masculinity and femininity because it works so perfectly together. And if they can break that, they can break all of society by extension. And I think they've done a pretty good job of doing exactly that. And it's amazing if you look at these ideas we discuss and how ridiculous they are, and how I feel like it's a psyop to even convince me to waste my time convincing people that a man is not a woman. It's done on purpose because they have the world so confused now that they can come at us with absolute garbage and it needs a discussion. If we had the basis of masculinity and femininity in the household, how much harder would the transgender argument be to implement? Think about it. Well, she's a woman, I'm a man. No. But now they got people thinking we're all the same. It doesn't matter. Gender is not real. All this craziness because of the breakdown of the basics. So this is why perhaps they see you as such a threat, and they see me as such a threat, and they see us as such a threat because we've just stuck to the age-old adages and the age-old ways that people have always been. And I do think that one of the reasons why they dislike me so much is because, I certainly live a teenage boy's dream. But if you want to inspire the next generation, how else are you going to do it, right? You have to have the fancy car and the big yacht and all these things. And by inspiring these men to stand up and think for themselves and resist the slave mind, it's doing genuine damage to their slave agenda. And I think that that's why I especially ended up targeted. I truly believe that's what's happening.
I think there is an element of it that you've captivated young men, and that is a very important demographic in order to sustain an enslaved population. Is you need to poison men, and I think
100%.
that is true.